I thought my husband was joking when he said I was too plain to attend his sister's wedding. I had no idea he was serious, that he'd already uninvited me from the event, while simultaneously demanding I hand over $30,000 from my savings to pay for the reception his family couldn't afford. The audacity of it didn't fully hit me until he stood in our living room, barely looking at me, explaining that car dealership owners would be attending and I simply wasn't presentable enough to be seen with his family. But my money was perfectly presentable. My hard-earned savings were exactly refined enough for their purposes. That's when something inside me went cold and clear and absolutely done. Within an hour of that conversation, I'd made 3 phone calls that would destroy everything he'd built on the foundation of my money and my tolerance. And when his mother called, wailing that she had nowhere to put her precious son, I smiled for the first time in months. The marriage had been a mistake from the beginning, though it took me 3 years to admit it. I met Ryan at a professional conference where I was presenting research on sustainable urban development, and he was attending as a representative of his family's construction company. He was charming in that effortless way some men are, good-looking enough to turn heads, confident enough to approach me after my presentation with intelligent questions that made me think he was genuinely interested in my work. We dated for 8 months before he proposed. In retrospect, I can see that he never actually loved me. He loved what I represented. I had a doctorate in civil engineering, a prestigious position at a top consulting firm, and a salary that dwarfed his income from the family business that was barely staying afloat. I had savings, investments, and a trust fund from my grandmother that I rarely touched. I was successful, independent, and financially secure. Everything his struggling family needed. But Ryan packaged his interest as admiration. He told me he loved my intelligence, my drive, my independence. He introduced me to his family as this brilliant woman he'd been lucky enough to meet. His mother, Linda, seemed thrilled. His father, Robert, seemed impressed. His younger sister, Melissa, seemed indifferent but polite. We got married in a simple ceremony because I didn't want anything elaborate, and Ryan claimed he didn't either. We bought a house, a beautiful 4-bedroom in the suburbs that I paid for entirely, because Ryan's credit was terrible and his savings were non-existent. He moved in with his furniture, his dog, and his assumption that my money was now our money, while his debts remained his alone. The first year was tolerable. He went to work at the family construction company every day. I continued my consulting work, traveling frequently for projects. We had a comfortable routine that didn't require much emotional investment from either of us. But slowly, gradually, I started noticing the requests. Could I lend his father $5,000 to cover a business expense? Could I help Melissa with her car payment this month? Could I invest in the construction company to help them expand? Each request was presented as temporary, as a loan that would definitely be repaid, as an investment in our future since Ryan would inherit the business someday. I said yes more often than I should have. Told myself this was what marriage meant, supporting your partner's family, being generous with resources. But the money never came back. The loans were never repaid. The investment in the construction company disappeared into covering their existing debts rather than funding any expansion. By year 2, I'd given Ryan's family over $80,000 in various forms, and I'd started to notice how they treated me. The gratitude had evaporated. Instead, there was an expectation, an assumption that my money was available for their needs. Linda would call me directly now, bypassing Ryan entirely, explaining that they needed help with this or that expense, always framing it as our responsibility as the successful ones in the family, always implying that refusing would make me selfish and cruel. I started saying no, started pointing out that I'd already given them substantial amounts that had never been repaid, started suggesting they manage their finances better instead of relying on me to bail them out constantly. That's when the criticism started. Linda began making comments about my appearance, about how I dressed too plainly, didn't wear enough makeup, didn't style my hair properly, about how successful women should present themselves better, should invest in their looks, should care about making their husbands proud. Melissa joined in, suggesting I was too serious, too focused on work, not fun enough at family gatherings. Even Robert started making pointed comments about how his construction workers' wives dress nicer than I did for family dinners. Ryan said nothing, never defended me, never told his family to back off, never acknowledged that their treatment of me was inappropriate. When I brought it up privately, he'd say I was being too sensitive, that they didn't mean anything by it, that I should just ignore their comments and keep the peace. The wedding announcement came 6 months ago. Melissa was getting married to Bradley, who worked in management at his family's car dealership chain. It was the biggest thing to happen to Ryan's family in years. A connection to real money, real success, real social status. Linda was beside herself with excitement. She immediately started planning an elaborate wedding that the family absolutely could not afford. The budget ballooned from a reasonable $20,000 to a ridiculous $80,000. The venue was upgraded to a luxury hotel. The guest list expanded to 300 people. The dress cost $8,000. Everything had to be perfect because Bradley's family would be there, because car dealership owners and managers would be attending, because this was the family's chance to prove they belonged in that social circle. I watched the planning with detached amusement, knowing there was no way they could pay for any of it. Their construction company was struggling, barely covering its own expenses. Linda and Robert lived paycheck to paycheck. Melissa worked part-time at a boutique, and Ryan's salary was modest at best. 2 months before the wedding, Linda called me. "Sarah," she said, using that sweet voice she deployed when she wanted something. "We need to talk about the wedding budget." "I'm not giving you money for Melissa's wedding," I said immediately. "You've already gotten more than enough from me over the years." "This is different," she said, her voice tightening. "This is family. This is important. Melissa's marrying into a very successful family, and we need to make a good impression. We need everything to be perfect. Then maybe you should have saved money instead of spending beyond your means," I said, "or scaled back the wedding to something you can actually afford." "We can't scale back now," Linda said. "The deposits are all paid. The contracts are signed. We're committed." "That sounds like poor planning," I said. "Not my problem." "Sarah," she said, and now her voice was hard, "you're part of this family. You have a responsibility to help. We've always been there for you." "When have you ever been there for me?" I asked. "Name one time you've helped me with anything." "That's not fair," she said. "We include you in everything. We treat you like a daughter. You criticize my appearance, take my money, and expect me to fund your lifestyle," I said. "That's not being treated like a daughter. That's being treated like an ATM." She hung up on me. Ryan came home that night with a new strategy. He sat me down, took my hand, tried the gentle approach. "My mom called me," he said. "She's really stressed about the wedding budget. I know you don't want to help, but could you reconsider? Just this once?" "No," I said simply. "Just this once?" I repeated. "Ryan, I've given your family tens of thousands of dollars over the past 3 years. There's no just this once. There's a pattern of them demanding money and me being stupid enough to give it." "This is different," he said. "This is Melissa's wedding. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. Then she should have planned a once-in-a-lifetime event she could actually afford," I said. Ryan's expression hardened. "You're being selfish," he said. "You make good money. You have savings. You could help us easily, and you're choosing not to because you want to punish my family for a few comments." "A few comments?" I said. "Your mother has spent 2 years telling me I'm not good enough. Your sister treats me like I'm an embarrassment. Your father barely acknowledges I exist, except when he needs money. And you've never once defended me or told them to stop. Why would I give them $30,000 for a wedding?" "I'm asking you as my wife," Ryan said. "I'm asking you to do this for me, for our marriage, for my family. And I'm telling you as your wife that the answer is no," I said. "Figure out another way to pay for Melissa's excessive wedding." He stood up, angry now. "Fine," he said, "if that's how you want to be. But don't expect to be welcomed at family events anymore. Don't expect us to keep pretending you're part of this family when you won't act like it." I didn't respond. Let him storm out. Let him slam the door. I was done trying to buy acceptance from people who would never actually accept me. The demands continued over the next weeks. Linda called daily, alternating between guilt trips and threats. Melissa sent long text messages about how I was ruining her special day. Even Robert called once, trying the man-to-man approach with Ryan, asking him to control his wife and make me see reason. Ryan grew increasingly hostile at home. He stopped speaking to me except to make cutting remarks about my selfishness. He started staying out late, coming home drunk, sleeping on the couch, making it clear that my refusal to fund his sister's wedding was destroying our marriage. I didn't care. Something had broken in me, or maybe something had finally healed. I stopped trying to make the marriage work, stopped trying to win over his family, started seeing clearly what this relationship actually was and had always been. A transaction where I provided money and got nothing but contempt in return. 3 weeks before the wedding, Ryan came home with his final attempt. He sat down across from me in our living room, the living room in the house I'd bought, and delivered his ultimatum. "I need to talk to you about the wedding," he said. "I already told you I'm not paying for it," I said, not looking up from my laptop where I was reviewing a project proposal. "That's not what I want to talk about," he said. "I want to talk about you attending." I looked up then. "What about me attending?" "We've decided it would be better if you didn't come," he said. His voice was flat, matter of fact, like he was discussing a business decision rather than uninviting his wife from his sister's wedding. I stared at him. "You've decided I shouldn't come to your sister's wedding?" "The family discussed it," he said, "and we think it's for the best. Bradley's family will be there. Important people, business associates, car dealership owners. We need to make a good impression, and honestly, you're not good at these events. You don't dress well, you don't socialize well, you make people uncomfortable with your intensity. It's better if you sit this one out." The audacity of it was almost impressive. "Let me make sure I understand," I said slowly. "You want to uninvite me from a family wedding because I'm too plain and too awkward to be seen with your family in front of car dealership owners." He nodded. "I'm glad you understand. It's nothing personal. It's just about presenting the right image." "And what image is that?" I asked. "The image of a successful family," he said. "People who belong in Bradley's social circle. People who know how to dress and act appropriately at formal events." I laughed. Actually laughed, a harsh sound that made Ryan look uncomfortable. "That's funny," I said, "because I've been to state dinners with senators. I've presented at international conferences with Nobel laureates. I've negotiated contracts with Fortune 500 CEOs, but I'm not sophisticated enough for Melissa's wedding reception with car dealership management." "That's different," Ryan said. "That's your work. This is social. You don't understand the difference." "Oh, I understand the difference," I said. "At work, people value my intelligence and expertise. At your family events, people value appearance and the ability to make small talk. And you've decided I'm lacking in the latter." "Exactly," Ryan said, seeming relieved I was getting it. "So you'll understand why we think it's better if you don't attend." "But," he continued, "and here it comes," I thought. "Here's the real agenda. But we still need your financial contribution. The wedding is in 3 weeks, and we're short about $30,000 for the final payments. The venue needs their balance, the caterer needs to be paid. There are other expenses. We need you to cover that. So let me be absolutely clear," I said. "You want to uninvite me from the wedding because I'm too plain and unsophisticated to be seen with your family. But you want me to give you $30,000 to pay for the event I'm not invited to?" "Yes," Ryan said. "I know it seems contradictory, but this is about family. This is about helping Melissa start her marriage properly. This is about our reputation. You can help without actually being there. In fact, it's better if you help without being there." I looked at my husband, this man I'd married 3 years ago, this man I'd supported financially and emotionally, this man who was now telling me I wasn't good enough to be seen in public, but was perfectly adequate to be used as an ATM. And I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Ryan saw it and looked uncertain for the first time. "What?" he asked. "What's that look?" "I'm just thinking," I said, "about how thoroughly you've miscalculated. I'm not giving you $30,000. I'm not giving you 30 cents. And I'm not going to sit here and be insulted in the house I paid for by the man whose family I've been supporting for 3 years." Ryan's face flushed with anger. "You're being unreasonable," he said. "After everything my family has done for you, after we've included you and accepted you despite your flaws, you're going to refuse to help? What exactly has your family done for me?" I asked. "Besides criticize my appearance, demand my money, and now uninvite me from family events while still expecting financial support?" "We've been patient with you," Ryan said. "We've tolerated your social awkwardness, your inability to fit in, your cold personality. The least you could do is help with this wedding." "Get out," I said quietly. "What?" "Get out of my house," I said, louder now. "Get out right now or I'm calling the police to remove you." "You can't kick me out," Ryan said. "This is my house too." "No," I said. "This house is in my name only. You're not on the deed, you're not on the mortgage, you have no legal claim to this property, and right now I'm telling you to leave." Ryan stood up, his face ugly with rage. "You're going to regret this," he said. "You think you can just throw me out and everything will be fine? My family will make your life hell. You'll have no one. You'll be alone." "I already am alone," I said. "I've been alone in this marriage since it started. The only difference is now I'm acknowledging it. Get out." He left, slamming every door on his way out, shouting threats about lawyers and divorce and how I'd end up with nothing. I locked the door behind him and made my first phone call. My attorney, a sharp woman named Michelle, who I'd consulted with 2 weeks earlier after I'd started suspecting things would end this way. "Michelle," I said when she answered, "it's time. File the divorce papers." "He's out of the house?" she asked. "As of 5 minutes ago," I said, "and I have recordings of him admitting the family uninvited me from the wedding while demanding $30,000. I'd started recording our conversations after the demands had escalated, documenting everything for exactly this moment." "Perfect," Michelle said. "I'll file first thing tomorrow morning. I'm also requesting a restraining order based on his threats tonight. We'll make sure he can't come back to the property." My second call was to the venue where Melissa's wedding was scheduled. I asked to speak to the events manager. "This is Sarah Whitmore," I said. "I believe my mother-in-law, Linda Whitmore, has a wedding booked with you for 3 weeks from now." "Yes," the manager said. "The Whitmore-Harrison wedding. We're very much looking forward to it. I need you to know that any suggestion that I'll be paying the outstanding balance on that event is false," I said. "I'm not financially responsible for this wedding. If they've told you I'm covering costs, they've lied." There was a pause. The manager's voice became more formal. "Thank you for letting us know," she said. "We'll need to speak with the family about payment arrangements then." "You should probably do that immediately," I said, "since I suspect they have no way to pay and have been counting on money from me that they're not getting." My third call was to Linda. She answered on the first ring, probably expecting Ryan to report success in extracting the money from me. "Sarah," she said, "did Ryan talk to you?" "He did," I said. "He explained that I'm too plain to attend Melissa's wedding but sophisticated enough to pay for it. And I explained to him that he's no longer welcome in my home and I'm filing for divorce tomorrow." "What?" Linda's voice went shrill. "You can't do that. You can't divorce Ryan over this." "Watch me," I said. "I'm done being your family's ATM. I'm done being criticized and used. I'm done with all of you." "But the wedding," Linda said. "The payments are due. We need that money." "Not my problem," I said. "You planned an expensive wedding you couldn't afford. You'll have to figure out how to pay for it yourselves." "Sarah, please," Linda said, and now she was begging. "We can't cover those costs. We've already spent everything we have on deposits. If we can't pay the balance, we'll lose all of it. We'll have no wedding. Then I guess Melissa will have to get married at the courthouse, like people who don't have $80,000 for a party," I said. "You're destroying this family," Linda said. Then she switched tactics. "Ryan loves you. He made a mistake. Don't throw away your marriage over one argument. He didn't make a mistake, I said. He showed me exactly what he thinks of me, and I'm choosing to believe him. I hung up, blocked her number, blocked Ryan's number, blocked Melissa's number, blocked the entire family who'd spent 3 years treating me like a resource rather than a person. An hour later, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello? Sobbing on the other end, incoherent wailing. Then Linda's voice, broken and desperate. He has nowhere to go, she sobbed. Ryan has nowhere to go. Your locks are changed and he can't get into the house, and he has nowhere to stay. That's unfortunate, I said. He should have thought of that before insulting me. You have to let him back in, Linda cried. He's your husband. He lives there. He's not on the lease, I said. He's not on the deed. He has no legal right to be in my house. And I've already filed for a restraining order, so if he comes back, he'll be arrested. You can't do this to him, Linda wailed. He's my son. He's a grown man who made his choices, I said. He chose to marry me for my money. He chose to let his family use me. He chose to uninvite me from a wedding while demanding I pay for it. These are consequences of his choices. But where will he stay? Linda asked. I don't know, I said, and I don't care. That's your problem now, not mine. She started crying harder, great heaving sobs. You're destroying him. You're destroying all of us. You're cruel and heartless, and you never deserved to be part of our family. You're right, I said calmly. I never deserved the way your family treated me. No one does, and now I'm done with it. I hung up. This time I blocked the unknown number too, changed my phone settings to only accept calls from my contact list. I didn't want to hear from any of them ever again. The divorce proceedings were brutal but efficient. Michelle was ruthless. She presented evidence of the financial abuse, the pattern of his family extracting money from me, Ryan's admission on recording that he'd married me for my resources. She demonstrated that Ryan had contributed nothing to the household financially, that the house was solely mine, that he had no claim to any of my assets. Ryan's attorney tried to argue for alimony, claiming Ryan had sacrificed career opportunities to support my work. Michelle destroyed that argument with evidence that Ryan had worked the same job the entire marriage, while I'd been the one traveling for work and advancing my career. The judge saw through Ryan immediately, granted me full ownership of the house, no alimony, a clean divorce with no financial obligations on either side. Ryan walked away with nothing except the car he'd brought into the marriage and whatever belongings he could prove were his. The whole process took 4 months. Melissa's wedding, meanwhile, was a disaster. The venue canceled when they couldn't get payment. They scrambled to find a cheaper alternative and ended up at a hotel conference room that cost 1/10 of the original venue but looked appropriately budget. The guest list was cut from 300 to 80 when they couldn't afford the catering for larger numbers. Melissa's dress was returned, and she bought something off the rack for $800 instead of $8,000. I heard all this through mutual acquaintances who found the whole situation fascinating. Apparently, Bradley's family attended the stripped-down wedding with barely concealed contempt. The car dealership owners who Linda had been so desperate to impress witnessed the family's financial humiliation firsthand. The marriage started under a cloud of embarrassment that never quite lifted. Ryan moved back in with his parents, unable to afford rent on his own. The construction company went bankrupt 6 months after the divorce, finally succumbing to the debts they'd been drowning in for years. Linda and Robert lost their house. The whole family's house of cards collapsed without my money propping it up. I felt no satisfaction in their downfall. No vindication or revenge-fueled joy. I just felt free from the obligation to fund their lifestyle, free from the criticism and the demands, free from pretending that a marriage built on financial convenience could ever be real love. A year after the divorce, I was having coffee with a colleague who'd known me throughout the marriage. "You seem different," she said. "Happier, lighter." "I am," I said. "I got rid of about 180 pounds of dead weight." She laughed. Best diet plan ever, she said. I've started dating again, carefully and slowly. I'm cautious now in ways I wasn't before. I pay attention to how men react when they learn about my career, my salary, my success. I watch for the signs that they see me as a resource rather than a person. I'm learning to value myself the way I should have all along. The house is just mine now. I redecorated, removing every trace of Ryan and his assumption that my space was his to occupy. I adopted a dog, a rescue who was wary and anxious at first, but slowly learned to trust. We're healing together, both of us learning that not everyone who seems safe actually is. I got a message recently from Melissa, sent through LinkedIn because I'd blocked her everywhere else. She apologized for her part in how the family treated me, said her marriage was struggling, that Bradley's family looked down on her the same way her family had looked down on me, said she understood now what I'd experienced. I didn't respond. Her apology, genuine or not, didn't change anything. Couldn't undo the years of being used and insulted. Couldn't make me forget that she'd been perfectly happy to take my money while criticizing my appearance. Some damage is permanent. Some relationships can't be repaired. Ryan tried to reach out too, about 8 months after the divorce. Sent an email claiming he'd been in therapy, that he'd realized how badly he'd treated me, that he wanted a chance to apologize properly and maybe try again. I deleted it without responding. There was nothing he could say that would matter, nothing that would make me forget him, standing in my living room telling me I was too plain for his sister's wedding, but polished enough to fund it. Linda sent a Christmas card last year to my office address since I'd moved, and she didn't know my new home. Inside was a note about how the family missed me, how they hoped I was doing well, how they'd always considered me part of the family despite our differences. No mention of the money, no acknowledgement of how they'd used me, no real apology, just a vague expression of missing my presence in their lives. Missing my wallet, more likely. I threw it away. I don't waste energy on anger anymore. Don't spend time dwelling on how they treated me or planning revenge or hoping karma catches up with them. They're simply not part of my life anymore, relegated to a closed chapter I occasionally think about as a lesson learned. The lesson being this: when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. When someone values your resources more than your presence, walk away. When a family treats you like an ATM, stop making deposits. When your husband tells you you're not good enough to be seen in public, but good enough to be exploited financially, know that the problem isn't you. It was never you. I'm sitting in my home office now, the one I converted from what used to be Ryan's gaming room, looking at a project proposal for a sustainable development in Copenhagen. My dog is sleeping under my desk. My calendar shows a dinner date this weekend with a professor I met at a conference who asked me out after my presentation, who seemed genuinely interested in my work rather than my bank account, who doesn't know yet about my trust fund or my investments because we've been too busy discussing climate resilience and urban planning to talk about money. This is what my life looks like now. Quiet, peaceful mine. No demands for money I'll never see again. No criticism about my appearance from people who bring nothing but entitlement. No performance of a happy marriage that was really just a financial arrangement. Just me, building the life I want with the resources I've earned, surrounded by people who value me for who I am rather than what I can provide. They thought I needed them. Thought I'd be lost without their family, isolated and alone. Thought my desperation for belonging would keep me funding their lifestyle forever. They were wrong about everything, especially about me being too plain for their social circle, because the truth is, I was always too good for them, too intelligent to keep falling for their manipulation, too successful to need their approval, too valuable to waste on people who saw me as a resource rather than a person. My husband demanded $30,000 while uninviting me from his sister's wedding. He thought he'd calculated perfectly, thought he could have my money without the inconvenience of my presence. Instead, he lost everything: the house, the marriage, the steady income from my salary that had been subsidizing his entire family, and I lost nothing but dead weight. When people ask me now if I regret the marriage, I tell them the truth. I regret how long it took me to leave. I regret the money I gave them that I'll never recover. I regret not seeing clearly from the beginning what the relationship actually was, but I don't regret the ending. Don't regret standing up for myself. Don't regret choosing my own peace over their demands. The best decision I ever made was refusing to pay for a wedding I wasn't welcome at, because that refusal, that boundary, that moment of saying no, it freed me from a life I'd been living for other people, freed me to build something real with someone who actually valued me, freed me to understand my own worth. They're struggling now, Ryan and his family, struggling with the consequences of their choices, with the debts they can no longer make me cover, with the lifestyle they can't afford without my money. And I'm thriving, building a career I'm proud of, living in a home I love, dating people who see me as a complete person rather than a walking bank account. Some people would say I should have given them another chance. That family is important. That marriage requires sacrifice. But those people don't understand what it's like to be valued solely for your resources, to be criticized and used and still expected to be grateful for the opportunity to fund someone else's life. I gave them 3 years, gave them tens of thousands of dollars, gave them chance after chance to treat me like a human being rather than a source of income. They chose every time to take more while giving nothing back. So when they asked for $30,000 while simultaneously telling me I wasn't good enough to attend a family wedding, I finally gave them something different. I gave them consequences, and I gave myself freedom, and I've never looked back.